What's happening, people? It is episode 18 of Parenting Autism. Going just as well as it can be.
Yes, it is.
Hi. How you doing, babe?
I'm doing good, honey. How are you doing? I never know what you're going to do on an intro.
Fantastic.
Good.
What's Dave Ramsey say? Better than I deserve.
There you go.
There
You'll have to come up with your own little tagline there.
Yeah.
So what's going on?
What's going on? We're doing this podcast right now.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
So let's talk about your morning. I know you wanted to talk about...
Yes, fourth Saturday, real quickly, because it was such an uplifting experience. Our church, every fourth Saturday, goes out into the community and serves the community by doing projects for schools, mulching, painting, or, people that need help, if, fence repair or porch repair. And today was called Micro Dollar Club. So the church sent us out with envelopes of money, and we...
How many different groups were there?
There were groups of 3 and 4 people, and I'd say there was probably at least 10 groups.
That's great.
Yeah. And so each group picked a place that they wanted to go. We picked Goodwill.
I think that made good sense.
Yeah. And so we went to Goodwill. We prayed before we went. We prayed when we got there that God would lead us to the right people that needed help the most. And we were able to bless several people in Goodwill that were just buying stuff. And this one lady comes to mind that was buying a bicycle. I think she had 3 or 4 kids. And the bicycle was like $29.99, and it was such a blessing to her that we were there and we were able to take care of that for her, and she was just over the moon about it.
That's really neat.
Yeah, and then we went to a grocery store nearby and blessed a couple of families there, and it was just really neat because when you bless other people, you get blessed yourself. You get just the feeling of helping others really just blesses you. So
yeah, I really look forward to when Bryce is a little bit older that I'll be able to take him and participate in those kind of things as well and teach him, like that's what life is really about.
Yeah,
Paying so yeah, I'm looking forward to that. That's awesome stuff. Thank you for sharing.
Good stuff. So what is next on the agenda for today? Well,
I think we'll talk about the Kennedy Space Center. I think that's, since we recorded the last time, that was the biggest highlight of the week.
Yep,
Other than my birthday, which I talked about that so much the last time that we'll just say I had a nice birthday.
Yeah.
It was a great birthday week. But seriously, we went there for really Father's Day. I thought that was a great day to go because it's kind of a man's man place. And yes, the ladies like it too, but I feel like it's such a great place for you and Bryce to have the bond. And we talked last time about how we decided to get you guys the annual pass and to get me the one-time pass, which was wonderful because I wanted to go and I wanted to see it through his eyes.
Especially because now that's what he's into right now.
Oh, he's so excited about rocket ships and outer space and anything that goes up in the sky, airplanes. And we saw several planes while we were there, and that excited him. So it was great. It was a little bit rainy, but that timed out perfectly because they have this huge playground for the kids, and it's under a pavilion. So you and I were able to sit there and be protected from the rain while he was playing on the, going up inside of it, which actually that's the first time that he's ever gone up inside of a playground area. Like I've seen those before, but like where he can climb inside and then find the slide. And it was so cute because I could tell he didn't know what to do. So he came back out and there was a little girl there. And so I just went over and asked her if she would lead him. I said, can you show him where the slide is? And she took him several times and he followed her. He has no problem following the kids, which is great. And then she had to leave with her parents, and she told me, I showed him 5 times. I said, I appreciate that. And then she goes, he should be able to find it now. And he did. And then he would follow some other kids. I could see him, through all the walls or whatever it was that's there. But, he would follow them. And then if he didn't like where they were going, I would see his brakes come on, and then he would back up, and then he'd go over to what he was comfortable with. But we probably spent a good 30 minutes there, I'd say, before we had lunch. Yeah. It timed out well because, again, it was pretty much when we got there.
It started pouring.
And it was raining really hard. And then after that, there was no rain. And because they did have rain and they had lightning, they had to close where they're working on the rockets and stuff. So when we took the bus tour, we didn't see everything, but we still saw plenty. It was a lot more than I remember from many years ago, the last time I went. It was a lot more stuff, I thought.
Yeah, I think they have upgraded a lot of the...
Did you think that too?
Yeah, there was a lot more to see. And that's one of the reasons why we got the annual passes, because I want to go back and see the IMAX movies. So I'm going to go do that by myself so I can kind of sit and enjoy that. Right. And then probably next week or the week after, I'm going to take him back there. And, I'm going to do some reconnaissance while I'm up there by myself just to kind of get an idea of what else we didn't see that would be good for him. Right. So when I go back up there with him, I'll have a plan instead of wandering around aimlessly with Bryce.
Well, I felt like he was really engaged and interested, even though he didn't understand quite everything that we were doing. When he saw a rocket ship or a space shuttle, he knew what that was, and he was very, very excited. And he had asked that morning if he could touch a rocket. Yeah. And so they had the one there that we could touch. And I thought it worked out really well. And then I know when we got there, you had asked about a disability pass. It didn't have one per se, but what did she say?
I read something online that they had some type of access pass for people with disabilities, like in Bryce's situation. And I really didn't know what that entailed or if we would need it. And the lady was like, oh, we don't have a pass. You just, if there's any issues at all, there's team members all over the Space Center. Just go up to them and tell them your situation, and they'll take care of it right away. And really...
there wasn't a lot of need, was there?
No, we only had to use it once, and that was for the bus ride, because there was a long line we were standing in to get on the bus, but they were in between us and the bus. They were stopping people to take the photos that you buy, So I knew that was going to take a long time, and I knew that we just wouldn't do good with photos. And I just asked the lady, I was like, my son has autism. Photos just aren't going to work for us. Can we just go from point A to point B to the buses? And she's like, oh, yeah, no problem. So she got us right through that. And really, the lines for the other attractions, they weren't like Disney lines. They were short, maybe 5-10 minute lines for
us. Now, I will say that we went on a Sunday. And the bus driver pointed out that we came on a good day. And he said, you're here on a Sunday, so it's lighter traffic. Yesterday, we had the lines were backed up, and it was a 2 or 3 hour wait
for the bus.
Mm-hmm. So that is something to note, that we planned well, was to go on a Sunday versus a Saturday. Mm-hmm. That was a happy accident, but it swung in our favor.
Yeah, and they have good food. They do allow you to bring a backpack, so if you want to pack your own food, you can. We saw people kind of like having a picnic there,
and they had all
so
the
that was nice.
Stuff.
That's...
Well, I want to give props too, because we're really watching Bryce's diet now a lot closer. And so, like, if we get him a hot dog, we give it to him without the bun. If we get him a burger, we give it to him without the bun. but they actually had gluten-free bun option.
Yeah.
Which was a nice
Amazing.
surprise. And so we were able to get him a burger with a gluten-free bun, and we were super happy about that.
Yeah, that was nice.
Yeah. So, for those of you who are listening and you may have your child on a special diet, we were able to stick with our gluten-free, dairy-free diet for the day, and we didn't miss a beat. Of course, we packed snacks for him.
Yeah.
So if he needed something else, but I was pleasantly surprised that they had that available.
There are a lot of doors at the Space Center, so if your kiddo likes doors like Bryce does, then that's just an FYI. Bryce did get stuck one time. We were watching a preview movie type thing before they opened the door to see the shuttle Atlantis on display, and the shuttle is actually behind the screen, which is really neat because when the movie ends, you can kind of see the shuttle through the screen, and then the screen lifts up, and then you can just walk out to the shuttle. And that was super cool.
That was very cool.
And Bryce had a little bit of trouble with that because I think he wasn't expecting the screen to go up. Number 2, he wasn't expecting the shuttle to be behind it. Number 3, he wasn't expecting the shuttle to be as big as it was. And number 4, I think he was thinking that the shuttle was going to blast off.
He was covering his ears.
Yes.
He was concerned about that. He was also a little confused and concerned that we were leaving a different way and not back through the same door that we came in
After
through.
we were done in that room.
And that was bothering him. And I think he was just a little tripped up before that, because once you get off the bus, they drop you off at this place where the shuttle is, and there's apparently a 10-minute window that you wait, and then this door comes up. Well, right then he was covering his ears. He didn't want to be near it. We had to kind of stand back, and we were explaining to him, it's okay, it's safe. And then when it opened, we did go through it, and then they have you sit and watch a movie before they take you to the next part. And I think we had that happen twice at that location, correct?
Yeah, I think so.
So it was kind of messing with his mind that these doors would be going up and down and unexpected. But he did well sitting through the movies and waiting. And then, we were just telling him it's okay. And then once we kind of knew what was going to happen next, we could prep him that once the movie's done and the light comes back on, then we can go through that door and stuff. But it did, it messed with him a little bit.
Yeah.
But overall, he did really, really well. And he handled that bus ride very well. And that was it 45 minutes?
Yeah, so the bus ride is 45 minutes from the Kennedy Space Center main building out to where they have the Saturn V display in a separate building. So they give you the tour of all the launch pads, and they stop so you can take pictures, but you don't get out of the bus, so it's 45 minutes. I was a little worried about his potty situation, so I wasn't sure if he would be able to hold it, but he did. And then once you get to the Saturn V building, you can spend as much or as little time there as you want. So we kind of did a quick tour, and then the bus ride back is only 15 minutes. So you can plan on spending an hour plus doing the bus.
Yeah. And we spent a little bit of time there. I mean, we had the 2 movies that we watched, which was cool. They did this one of the Apollo launches, and they had it as if you were there, and it looked like the whole scene was set up. I mean, it was entertaining.
They have
it was
a mock-up
very cool.
of Mission Control, so yeah.
Now,
cool.
Bryce, again, loud sound, so anyone that has sound sensitivities, again, did we take the earphones? We did.
We did.
We learned after Disney, and actually he wore them, and that helped tremendously.
Yeah.
And so that we're really, really glad that we took him. That was the time that he needed it. Was when that was all going on, and then they were counting the blast off, because it was loud, you know, in there. Definitely loud for him. And then when we went past the shuttle, the other really cool thing 2 cool things in there for the kids. They had that, what would you call that, where they were walking out or going through that little tunnel?
Oh, it was a mock-up of the space station. So it was like a mini playground for the kids where they could climb through the tunnels that looked like the space station, shaped like the space station.
It was like a see-through.
Tube,
it was clear tube.
It was elevated above the ground.
And so if they were looking down, they were looking at the ground below them, the floor way down below them.
Yeah.
And so Bryce, of course, at first was kind of like, no. And then we told him to follow somebody. Again, there was an older girl that probably was like 10 or 11. And so she's like, I'll help you. And then once he got around the corner and he figured it out, when he came back, he was so excited, like crawling back through. And then he wanted to do it again and again and again.
So he had a lot of fun.
So that was really, he called it the space tunnel. And so he loved the space tunnel. And then when you leave, you can either go down the regular steps, or they had an option that you could go down this big slide.
Yeah, I think it simulated re-entry into the atmosphere or something. But we split up because we didn't want Bryce going down by himself and nobody would be at the bottom.
Right.
So I went to the bottom,
mm-hmm.
and I think you took the headphones with you.
Mm-hmm.
So what happened was, while you're waiting in line, and I don't know if I told you this or not.
So here we go.
The closer you get to the slide, there's a little button on the floor, and if you step on it, it simulates a sonic boom from the shuttle. So I didn't really know what was going on, but Bryce, he was like a little scared of that. And so there's 2 sonic booms. It's like a boom, boom. So when the shuttle re-enters the atmosphere, there's a sonic boom from the nose and then from the tail. So this button that you pressed on the floor, you get 2 loud booms. And so fortunately, the people that were immediately in front and back of us didn't know the button was there on the floor to step on, or they didn't care for the boom because it didn't happen immediately when we were standing there. But it is loud enough that it startled him, and he was reconsidering going down the slide because of that. And then of course we got up to the slide. He wanted to go down on my lap, or next to me, and the slide was very wide. But the guy did not want him to go down the slide with me on the same slide. So there's a parallel slide, and I did eventually convince him to go down the other slide, and it was fun.
Yeah, and he was very proud of that because he says the astronauts go down the slide. So he was an astronaut, and he went down the slide, and he loved that whole thing. So it's a great place for you guys that you're going to be able to go a little bit more this summer. Mm-hmm. I think it's a great game plan that when he has days out of school and you're looking for something to do, you can just, go on the highway, go up there for the day and come on back, pack a lunch. You kind of know that whole drill now. Mm-hmm. And you'll know what his favorite things are, and maybe try to introduce him to something new each time, or revisit, because like I was saying last week when we were talking about this, is I really believe he'll grow into it throughout the year. And what he's interested in now or not interested in now, he may be interested in, this time next year. So
for sure. So that leads me to what you sprung on me earlier today, which I wasn't aware of.
I know.
When we were at the Saturn V Rocket Center, I was in the gift shop, and the last I heard, you were taking Bryce outside. And I was looking around the gift shop, and take it away.
Yeah, well, the reason why I didn't share this with you until now is because it was Father's Day, and you were so happy. I mean, because it was a great, fun day. And I didn't want to dampen it. And I knew if I shared with you what happened, it would dampen it, because I saw your reaction this afternoon when I told you. And it was how I expected you to react, which you should have reacted this way, and to be upset, because what happened wasn't nice, and it hurt, it hurt to watch. So anyway, so what I shared today is that while you were in the gift shop, Bryce was very smitten with the doors, a little more than he has been in a long time. He gets extra excited if it has handicap access, and so they have a button. In fact, while we were eating lunch, he left our table. We didn't even know where he was going, and he had spotted the square button on the wall and was making a beeline to it so he could hit the button and watch the doors open. I mean, it's a thrill for him. We get that. So at the store, he saw the square button and he wanted to hit it, and I was outside. And I was observing, and I always tried to give him his space because it's like one of those things, and this is for us to talk about, but I feel like I want to prepare him for real life as much as I can. I'm there to protect him, but I also have to not be constantly glued to his side and let him experience life and then see how he reacts to things, which he was going to get this opportunity that I didn't know about. So anyway, he's kind of playing with the doors. I don't know. We weren't there for very long. So it was just maybe a couple of times that he did it. And then I saw these two brothers that were walking out of the door. And if I were guessing, I would say they were probably 7 and 10. And the younger one looked back and said to the older one, he called him a stupid idiot. And my eyes just kind of bugged. And I was like, wow, okay. I don't hear that very often. So like when I heard that attitude, you stupid idiot, that's how he said it to his brother. So, I didn't think much more about that other than I don't want to teach Bryce to talk that way. Really, that's just kind of like what crossed my mind.
Yeah.
Well, then I think the older brother, his eye went to Bryce with the doors. So they noticed that Bryce was opening them and closing them. And actually, Bryce wasn't even touching them. He was hitting the button so that they would open and close. And he was stemming, which means he was jumping up and down and flapping his hands. And he was excited and smiling. And so, the older brother went back and he was like trying to pull the door closed. And then the little brother, that caught his attention. So he went back and he was doing something with the doors and they were looking at Bryce. Well, Bryce was confused because why are you messing with the doors? He just wanted to watch them open and close. And they're just staring at him. And Bryce just stood there and he just started going, help me, which I know that that's something that he will say to us if he needs help with something, but it really broke my heart. So I was like, oh my gosh, he doesn't know what to do. And of course, at this point, I didn't step in because it would have caused a scene if I had. And they hadn't done anything to him. They were just like trying to control the doors. And then their dad was inside. So the dad saw what was going on. And so he started walking toward and he said, come on, let's go. So he took the older boy, he took them both out, but the older one was going out with him as they're walking by me. And I heard him say to his dad, he just kept messing with the doors. Open, close, open, close, open, close. He's so annoying. Why does he do that? Right? So the dad just looks at me and I didn't say anything. I mean, I looked back at him, but I felt like and I know this is where we can differ. I don't feel like I had to give him an explanation. Bryce he was not in anybody's way. I make sure if it's a situation like that he's not blocking traffic. He's not disrupting anybody's shopping experience. And most of the time I will even tell him you can't do it unless there's a person. In fact, at another story, I told him that unless there's people, you can't do it because I want him to have a purpose. So, I heard that boy say that and I realized he was talking about Bryce. And again, I felt sad for Bryce. But I also thought to myself, this is a peek into the future. And how are we going to deal with these things? Bryce is tall for his age. I measured him today. He's 47 inches. He's almost 4 feet tall. He looks like he's 7 years old. People see him and they expect a certain behavior and a certain dialogue that can come from him. And he's not going to give them what they're expecting. Now, the other little boy, he went back to the door. And again, Bryce, you have to picture it's like a clear glass door. Bryce was on the inside looking through. And the other little boy went up and he had a mean look on his face. And then but he didn't say anything to Bryce. He was just like trying to push against the door. Like in other words, to spite Bryce, basically. I'm going to push it at him. And then Bryce he can't read emotions very well. So he was excited. So he started laughing and flapping. And I was like, good for him, And then the little boy says to him, well, he didn't say it. Well, he kind of said it. And then he just said, oh, why does he do that? He's so annoying. And that's,
He said it again?
Well, the other brother said it before. Now the little brother said it.
Okay.
Probably because he heard his older brother say it. So yeah,
and he said, what's the matter with you?
What's the matter with you? You're right. Thank you. And he goes, what's the matter with you? That's what he said to Bryce.
That's the part that
You're
really
so annoying. Yeah.
upset me.
Again, he said it through the glass to him. And at this point, trust me, I was like ready to go over and approach. But at that point, the boy turned right around and went over to his dad and his brother, and they left. And then I saw you coming, and I was thinking, yay. and then you came. So honestly, if I had done anything right there, it would have ruined your day. And I did not want to ruin your day. And Bryce was okay. My heart was hurt, and I kept thinking about it, and I thought, gosh, it's just, again, it's just it's a peek into what can and most likely will happen. I don't want to keep him in a bubble for his life, so he's going to have to learn how to respond to these things if we're going to put him out into the real world. And I can't constantly be, again, like I said, right there beside him. I kind of give him a space and see what happens. And I know your take, you want to have an autism shirt on him in every public situation, and you can talk about that. I know where you come from on that, but I feel like I also want him to be like a normal little boy, and I don't want that out there 100% of the time.
I don't think I would have been prepared for what you witnessed. Let me start by saying that, because it's never happened under my watch before, and this is the first time really that it's happened
that I've seen
with you.
Correct.
Having said that, I think my first reaction, and a non-Christian reaction, would have been to grab the boy by his shirt and lift him up to my eye level and give him a piece of my mind. But I don't think I would have done that. I think when he screamed, "What is wrong with him?" I probably would have...
I can't say he screamed it, but he said it in a mean way.
Yeah, I get it.
I know.
I get it.
I know.
It makes me sad too. So I probably would have gotten Bryce, and I would have brought him over to the little boy. And I would explain, you want to know what's wrong with him. Bryce has autism. He's 5 years old. He doesn't know how to talk like you talk, and he doesn't know the things that you know, and he doesn't know how to communicate that. And he's having fun with the door because that's what makes him happy, And I would have tried to explain to the boy what was going on. Whether or not he understood it or not, he would have had that experience of me telling him that.
It's interesting that you say that because, I'm playing this back in my head from last week. And when the older boy came out with his dad, I started to say something to him because it was before he made his comment to his dad. Mm-hmm. And I almost thanked him. That's what I was starting to do because I felt like he hadn't said anything to Bryce or even toward him. But I was just going to say thank you for helping him with the door because he, and I was going to give him a little explanation. But as that was just starting to leave my mouth was when I heard he kept opening it back and forth, and he's so annoying. So then when I heard that and I saw the look from his dad, it would have been confrontational.
Yeah.
And it's not that I can't handle that because, trust me, I don't seek confrontation.
Yeah.
But I have no problem being strong and being vocal when I need to. But who wants to cause a scene at the Kennedy Space Center on Father's Day when we're having this beautiful day?
It's one thing coming from a 7-year-old, but if the father had said something,
that would have been a different story.
Then that would have.
Guess what? There would have been a headline.
Yeah,
the Kennedy Space Center that day.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, and I'm glad you pointed that out because I am looking at the kids, and I thought, what about these kids? Because I'm not here to judge. All I know is that I have to look at Bryce and I have to understand that there are going to be children in this world as he grows up of all ages that they are just mean-spirited. Mm-hmm. And anybody that just calls your brother a stupid idiot, I heard that. That was the beginning.
Yeah.
And what does it matter to them that Bryce is playing with the door? They're just angry.
Maybe.
They're obviously unhappy. And if that annoys them, then really they have a personal problem. What's sad about that is there are going to be those kind of people in this world. And those are the kind that Bryce is going to be all happy and not even know that he's upsetting them. And then if somebody wasn't there to protect him, they would land a punch on him if they were older. Can you see him being even a little bit older and that happens and a kid doesn't understand that? And this kid is just full of hurt and anger at life. Mm-hmm. And he thinks Bryce is like laughing at him or mocking him. And I can't help to think maybe that kid even thought Bryce was laughing at him.
Maybe.
Why is he laughing at him? You know what I mean? Like he mistook what Bryce was even saying and doing.
And
doesn't justify it, but it makes me sad.
When I mentioned it earlier and you told me this story, I'm like, we need to be autism ambassadors. We need to spread awareness because these people, they just don't know what it is or what it's like. And that's why I brought up, that I like for him to have his Patience Please shirt on with the puzzle piece, because if we go to these, and I understand you had a nice Father's Day shirt on him for Father's Day. My daddy taught me everything I know, which was great. It's cute and funny, and I'm glad that he wore it. That's my boy. And I didn't give it a second thought, but in the back of my mind, I always have, if we're going to Disney, if we're going to some other crowded place, that I would like him to wear that shirt because it brings awareness to him. It's on the front and back. They can see him coming and going. And even if, like in this kid's situation, he's 7 years old, maybe he can't read what's on the shirt. It says Patience Please, Autism Awareness, and it has a big puzzle piece in the middle. So, but even if he can't read what that is, he'll see the puzzle piece, and it's just like any other form of advertising. If you show the symbol enough times, people will come to recognize the symbol, like Coca-Cola or Pepsi or whatever. So I'm hoping, through verbal and subtle ways like the shirt, that we can spread awareness, because let's face it, there is a lot of people out there right now on the spectrum, and there's a lot of people that don't know what it is.
I know.
They're oblivious. They don't want to know what it is. They don't care what it is. Some people do want to know what it is, and that's what we're here for. We're that's what I want to do.
Yeah. So, I thought it was important to talk about it today and to share it on the podcast, because this is about real life, and that was real life. It's like you said, it's the unexpected. I know that he's going to be vulnerable to this. I get that.
There was a reason why it happened to you and him.
That's for sure. Instead of you.
It happened to me and him.
Well, you described it, because your reaction would have been 100% different than my reaction.
And it's not going to be an if this is going to happen to me and him. It's going to be a when. Mm-hmm. And now, when it's going to happen the next time, I will reflect back on your situation and come into that direction instead of wanting to,
I have no regrets as to how I handled it, because it all ended on a happy note for everyone. And again, Bryce is none the wiser. He's really not. And he was so happy the rest of the day. He wasn't even, like quiet or thinking, or I know he was fine, which thank God, that he was oblivious to that. My heart hurt.
Maybe I could say, you know what autism is? And they'll be like, no, go look it up. I was just kidding.
I know, right?
Anyway,
but
sorry.
I was really glad that I didn't, rain on the day. You know what I mean? I did not want to ruin the fun family moment that we had. Well, you sure did hide
what happened very well that day, because I had no idea.
Yeah, and I didn't want you to know. And I was glad we were going on the bus right after that, and you were sitting with, or Bryce was over with me, and you were in your seat over there. So it gave me a moment to process all of that without us having conversation, so you couldn't see the sadness in my eyes.
Yeah.
And I knew I wasn't, but I knew I would tell you But when would be the right time to tell you? So I guess I told you today after the other bad news. What was the other bad news? You're like, wow, you're going to hit me all at once?
Yeah, what else you got? What
was the other thing?
The other thing was he was hitting himself in the face.
Oh, gosh. Yeah. Oh, so...
It all happens when you're with him. I don't understand all this stuff.
Yeah. God protects you.
Yeah, I guess
Be grateful. So what I shared with you also, I think I'm trying to block this one from my mind, but so earlier today, it was actually, you were in here working on your pictures from Fourth Saturday Serve. Mm-hmm. And so I had made him his lunch, and I had used a butter knife to cut up his hot dog. Okay. So then I was over at the sink and I was washing the dishes. I had fed him and everything. He was sitting there at the table there, and he was playing his iPad. And I have to say that, I don't know, either you and I are more vulnerable to it, or his noises are getting louder and more frequent. And it's probably that the noises are getting louder and more frequent. Woo! And so we know that certain games trigger it, but we're constantly just trying to tell him, really careful not to tell him to be quiet, because he does not like that. And I don't want him to be quiet. I don't want him to feel like he can't express himself. Mm-hmm. So I'm very careful not to say shh or be quiet, because he will react strongly to that.
Right.
You can't be quiet at the Culture Hotel,
Right. He doesn't understand.
He does. So it's okay. So I will tell him, Bryce, you can't do those loud noises. You can talk, but you have to do quiet noises. Or as he tells Google, turn it down 50%. We'll say that. So that's what was happening. He was playing his game. He got louder. I mean, and when I say loud, I mean, you know what it is. It's like that right there. It's horrible. You could probably hear that, and he's 4 rooms away.
Yes.
So anyway, he did another loud noise. And I said, Bryce, honey, you've got to turn the volume down. You can't be that loud. And I didn't raise my voice. I'm pretty good about keeping it steady.
Yes.
And so, because that will upset him too. So I said that, and all of a sudden he looked at me with this expression on his face. I could tell he was sad, because that's what Bryce does. Bryce rarely gets mad. He gets sad. He says, no, quiet. Say quiet. And then he says, gosh, what was the words? I can just see the face.
Choking.
Something about
choking.
hurt me. No, something about hurt me. And he started punching himself in the face. Hard. He did one hand and punched himself in the eye. And then he took both hands and he started beating himself in the face with both fists into his eyes.
Wow.
Hard. So I immediately went over and said, Bryce, no, don't hurt yourself. No one wants to hurt you. Don't hurt yourself. And he's going, hurt me. I'm like, nobody wants to hurt you, buddy. No, don't hurt yourself. Well, as I mentioned, I had the butter knife in my hand, and I was putting it away into the cutlery drawer. And I just put it away when I turned around and he was doing that. So then he points over and he said he wanted the knife. And he wanted me to get the knife again. I'm like, you want me to get the butter knife? Yes, get knife and put in and choke. I'm like, what? So I went over and I got the knife because I didn't know what he was talking about. I said, you want this knife? Yes. And then I took it over to him, and he took it and he started to put it straight into his mouth, toward his throat. And he wanted to choke himself with the butter knife. And so I obviously quickly took the knife back. Yeah. I mean, I was holding it while he was doing that. Yeah. I wanted to see what he was trying to tell me. Mm-hmm. And then he asked me to do it to me, to myself. Oh. And he said, Mommy, do it. Oh. And I'm like, Mommy, I am not going to put the knife in your mouth, Bryce. You don't do that. You don't choke. Yeah. And he said, no, Mommy's mouth. Right there. And he pointed to go straight in my mouth.
Into your mouth.
Into my mouth. So he wanted to not only hurt him, but he wanted me to hurt myself. Which I don't understand.
All that stemmed from you asking him to lower his volume?
That's the only thing that happened before. Now, I don't think he really wanted to hurt me because he's my protector.
Right. That just doesn't make sense.
So it doesn't make sense. And then, of course, I didn't accommodate him on that. I'm like, no. We don't ever use a knife to hurt ourselves or to choke. No. And then I could just see how upset he was. So once I explained everything and I knew I explained it well, then I went over and I totally changed topic, was able to get him to something else and tickle him. And then he was okay. Wow. And he's been fine the rest of the day. I mean, in regards to that, it came out of nowhere. Nowhere. And it reminds me, and I know you thought of it too, of our nephew, Storm. I remember when he was 9 years old and we took him and Jackson for a boating expedition. It was their Christmas gift.
Oh, yeah.
And he was really upset at himself. And he would get like... if he did something wrong, he would get mad at himself and he would want to hurt himself. That was definitely, he was super, super hard on himself and he had to really work through that. And I remember him wanting to throw himself into the water that day because he thought he ruined our trip. I'm like, no, you didn't ruin it. I'll just throw myself in the water and
I don't even
everybody will be better.
Did.
Yeah,
you know.
What he did? I have no idea because it was nothing significant.
It certainly didn't bother us.
No, but... you know, I always remember that day because it broke my heart for him.
Yeah.
And
we'd seen him with that behavior before when...
he would go hide or he would go and want to hurt. I mean, he would want to, he'd be mad at himself. He would very much be mad at himself.
Really mad at himself. Like,
yes.
He didn't want to be around other people.
Because then he thought people didn't want to be around him because he was mad at himself. Right. And we had to really kind of talk him down from that.
That was tough.
So seeing that in Bryce, I mean, wanting to take a knife and put it in your mouth.
Yeah.
He could have really injured himself if somebody wasn't there to monitor him. And that freaks me out a little bit. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah.
So that's why I had to tell you that one because we have to be aware of these things because these things come out of nowhere with him. We have behaviors that pop up that we've never seen before. And that's probably like... thank God, and I hate to kind of put it out there, but he hasn't done elopement or anything, but we hear about that, and I'm sure the first time, no one's expecting that to happen.
Well, yeah, we have a lock on our front door that he can't open, so we know it's not going to happen here.
We're already putting that into place, but I guess my point is there's always a behavior that starts somewhere.
Right, and who knows
if it's going to come again.
Yeah.
And I know we've been taught, if something like that happens, look at what happened before, look at what happens after.
Yeah.
You know, but I'm telling you, there was
sense.
Nothing significant that would trigger that. I don't know. So those are two really crazy things that has happened this past week.
So you shot me with that one.
I did. I shot you with that one. But
a couple hours later, you shot me with the Kennedy Space Center.
Well, I said, while we're at it, let me just tell you everything since you were already upset. I'm so sorry. But let's share something happy this week because we had a couple of really great things with Bryce.
Yeah, let me tell him about the swimming.
Go for it, yes. And that's a great happy thing that happened this week.
I've been trying to work in swimming each week during the summer now to keep his lessons alive in his head. And we got to the pool, and I think there was only one other person at the pool. And I don't even think they were in the pool. But, of course, I had to talk Bryce into getting into the water. Like, he wanted to watch Daddy from the chair. But I told him, I'm going one step in. Why don't you come one step in? So he came over. He'd go one step in. And then once he got in the water, everything was great. And it wasn't long after he got in the water that this family came over. And the boy was 6 years old. His name was Grady. And Bryce just immediately took to him like he was over with his parents getting ready to come in the pool, getting ready to put sunscreen on. And Bryce just went over and he took his hand and he just wanted him to come into the pool with him. And I'm like, no, Bryce, no. And, they're like, it's okay. Grady just has to put on sunscreen. And I'm like, okay. So I took Bryce. I'm like, come on, let's go back in the pool. Grady will be here soon. So him and Grady just hit it off. And when Grady introduced himself in the pool to Bryce, and the lady said, well, Grady, ask him what his name is. And I said, Bryce, tell him what your name is. And he said, Bryce. And I said, this is Bryce. He's 5 years old and he has autism. So he may, sometimes he doesn't understand what you ask him. He doesn't understand the questions, and sometimes he doesn't give answers, So, so just be aware of that. I told Grady, and Grady, acknowledged, and they started playing with water guns, and Grady started swimming in the pool, and Bryce was like, well, I can do that. He didn't say that, but he was thinking
Right.
that. And so he started imitating Grady, which I thought was fantastic, because that's the whole reason we were coming to the pool, was to get Bryce to swim. So he really took that opportunity to show Grady that he knew some moves too. And that just hit it off.
And the social interaction.
Yes, the social interaction. And at one point, Grady's family wanted to go to the beach, which was just over the little walkway there. And Bryce and I were just about done. He just did not want to get out of the pool. He didn't want Grady to go, but he didn't want to get out of the pool either. He was just having such a great time. I had this little car that sunk to the bottom that he just wanted to go under and get.
Because he thought it was a submarine.
Yeah, it was
He's
a submarine
all about submarines
car.
right now,
Yep.
too.
So a few minutes later, we got out of the pool and we walked down to the beach to say bye to Grady. And it was so nice. He gave him a high five, and that was just a great experience for Bryce and me,
Yes.
to get them together.
That's huge. And then when we went out to dinner for my birthday, Mom and Dad watched him, and they took him to their church, which he hasn't really been to before.
Mm-hmm.
And so we prepped him that he would be going, and they have a time for the kids in the gym that they all play together, and then they break into their groups. And so we did take his headphones, because I knew it was in the gymnasium, and the acoustics in there can be pretty loud. And I know they have, kids love to yell and scream, and all good fun, but still for Bryce, not so much fun.
Yeah.
But so Mom, my deal was don't leave him. You
Don't
stay
leave him by
with him,
himself,
please,
yeah.
and just make sure he's okay, because this is all new for him, and you just never know how
Routine.
he's going to
Routine,
react.
yeah.
And so, but she said he did fantastic. It was a little loud for him, but she said he didn't need his earphones. He just covered his ears, and then he would take one hand off to make sure it was okay. And then when they broke into their groups, they played some game called Four Corners. He participated. He was even the last one standing. And then she said the teacher was asking the kids what they had done this summer or what they had done this week. And when Mom asked him, what did you do this week, Bryce? And he said that he saw the rocket ship, and that he touched it, and he saw the space shuttle.
Yeah.
So, he was answering questions and participating.
Which is kind of new for him.
This is great.
Yeah.
He has been in the school environment, but for him to go to a place that was completely unfamiliar, these are really big wins for him,
Yeah.
So that was really good and encouraging and exciting. It was Sunday morning that I was going to make pancakes for Father's Day, and our stove, it lights up red when it's hot. And so I had the pan on the stove, and the butter was melting, and I lifted it up because I like to swirl it around before I put the batter on. Mm-hmm. Well, Bryce saw me lift it, and he saw the red, which he knows means hot. So he yelled, "Mommy, no, get back, Mommy, no." And I'm like, "What? I'm baking pancakes." And he says, "It's dangerous, Mommy." Yeah. No. And he had tears. He was so upset. That is the first time he's ever used the word dangerous that I've heard that he's told us. And he was able to express why he was upset. And then I was trying to explain to him, it's okay. I don't touch the pan with my hand. I use the spatula, and then I put it back on the stove. It's only going to burn me if I put my hand on the stove. But he wasn't buying that. But I wanted to explain all of that to him, which I did twice. And when I saw he was still really upset, and then he said again, "It's dangerous, Mommy. Step back now."
Yeah.
Okay, so I stepped back and I said to you, I'm sorry, I was going to make you pancakes for Father's Day, but I'm not allowed near the stove. And so you went near it, and he was okay with that. Mm-hmm. But we've observed this before when he won't let me wear a sweater, right. And it was a big deal. We realized that
he's trying to protect
He's protecting me from what he's afraid of. So if he's afraid of it for himself, then he thinks it causes danger to him, and he sees me doing the same thing, then he thinks is causing danger to me and he's going to protect me. I honestly think in his mind, he believes he has to protect me, but he knows that you protect him. So you don't need the protection. You're like his alpha and he wants to be my alpha, you know, which is super sweet. The best part about that, again, was that he could communicate that so clearly to us. And that was a first, and that was very exciting and a big breakthrough.
Gluten-free, casein-free.
There's some good things going on here. So that was great. And then the other highlight of the week with him, this would be with him talking as well. But it was Monday night, and we crawled up into bed, and it was silence. You know, it was quiet. He was wanting to snuggle, and all of a sudden he just goes, "I love you, Mommy."
Yeah, that was sweet.
And then he went to sleep. And that was the best gift of the whole week, because my phone had fallen in the toilet and I had to get a new one, which was unexpected.
That was another thing you didn't tell me about till later.
Yeah, well, you know, I didn't want to tell you till my phone started dying. Why ruin your day? Again, I didn't want to ruin your Father's Day, because that happened at the Space Center.
Yeah.
Right when we were getting ready to leave. But you know, I turned that into a positive. I had been talking about changing phones anyway. I just wasn't planning to go an hour south of home on a Monday night when I work late anyway. But I got my phone, I got my new Mac makeup, and then I came home, we crawled into bed, and Bryce said, "I love you, Mommy." Yeah. And that's the first time he has told me like that.
Just out of the blue, no prompting.
April 2nd was the only other time when he said, "I love Mommy." And yes, I have dates in my mind. So I have April 2nd and June 17th. But listen, if you're a mom and you haven't heard your child tell you that verbally, and it takes 5.5, almost 6 years, you make a note of it, and the date burns in your brain. So,
I mean, that's your birthday week, right?
Oh my gosh.
Right there.
Yeah, that made it. So I will always remember 50th birthday. That's right when he told me, "I love you, Mommy." So yeah, awesome stuff. So, you know, again, I choose to find the positive in as many things as I can. I try not to let the negative things weigh me down. I even try to process why things happen. How can we prevent them from happening again? What do I do in a situation when that comes up again? And I probably still have to process that a little bit more, that if somebody, you know, says something to Bryce, when do I step in? When do I not step in? When do I say something? And I can say it nicely and firmly too, but, you know, that's somebody else's child. And listen, I don't know. I just don't want to tick off a parent and then cause a big scene either. But there are lines that when they're crossed, I have no problem
speaking your mind.
I have no problem speaking my mind. And I can do it in a Christian and firm way. Yeah. But I can certainly speak. Yeah. And I can protect and I can defend. But I also can't let him live in bubble wrap. And I have to give him a little bit of space to observe what is going to happen to him.
In the real world.
How is he going to react? And then what am I going to do? Because we're choosing to expose him to the world, which we need to do if we want him to ever live independently one day, to the most, you know, to live the most fulfilled life that he can. At a certain point, if things don't change and he's 10 and he's 15 and he's standing there just saying, "Help me," when somebody doesn't, you know, when somebody's being mean to him, we'll have a different conversation. But right now he's 5, looks like he's 7, but we still have to, you know, just be there and protect him. So, yeah, it's been an interesting week, to say the least.
And that wraps up the week. And
yeah, there we go.
If there's a subject that you want us to cover, by all means, shoot us an email. Our email's in the show notes. And
also, you know, I'll speak to anybody else that's listening, and you've come across similar situations, and you can share with us, because we are by no means experts. We have Bryce, you know, we're learning from him. And while I know every child is different and every adult is different, and if you know one person with autism, you know one person with autism, it's a very common catchphrase. But there still may be things, you know, if you're a therapist, if you're a parent, that you can help us with the self-harm, and also in a situation when you're out in public and someone might be doing or saying something inappropriate to your child.
We're open to all that. Ideas, suggestions, experiences, all that.
Okay. Well, on that note, I just want to say that all in all, it's been a wonderful week. I'm getting the nod to wrap this up, so we must be close to an hour. You guys have a wonderful week, and we'll talk to you next week.
See ya.
Bye.